This week on Head to Head, Rise of Skywalker, final thoughts.
You're listening to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars. Begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this podcast. We are 3 days away from the release of The Rise of Skywalker.
It's finally.
Can you believe it?
Here. It's here, man. It's here.
In 3 days, we are going to go see this movie.
Man, I just I had the anticipation chills. It's I think I'm more excited for this one than I was for The Last Jedi, and I was really excited for The Last Jedi simply because of the title, and then we knew it was Luke's movie, so I was like, "What are we going to see with this thing?"
Now, of course, our main topic today is going to be our final thoughts. We have to be a little bit careful about what we talk about right now.
True.
But that said, I agree. I'm way more excited for this movie than I was The Last Jedi. And I think part of that is, even though it's funny, we really don't know that much about this movie. But we know things like Palpatine's going to be in it.
Yep.
You know, which is something that I actually thought, okay, I'm kind of breaking my own rule.
Yep.
You know what? I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it. Needless to say, The Rise of Skywalker is 3 days away. Now, listen, guys. Basically, for next week, we're going to give a spoiler-free, relatively spoiler-free review of the movie. And then the following week is when we'll do our actual spoiler-heavy review. So, absolutely be on the lookout for that. That's basically going to be the subject of our next two podcasts.
Yep.
It's going to be kind of like a first thoughts kind of thing, and then, we're going to go into full-blown spoiler mode and talk about everything. So you're definitely not going to want to miss either one of those two.
Unless you haven't seen it.
Unless you haven't seen it. But until then, we're 3 days away. Let's go celebrate. Let's go to the Cantina.
Yes. All right, man. So
we're going to get right into this.
We're going straight
right into it.
Hey, it's 3 days away, man.
3 days away.
So in the trailers we've seen, in numerous pictures, we've also seen Leia holding a lightsaber. And some people believe that she has her own. I mean, in some of the photos, I believe she's holding the one that Rey had.
Yeah, you know what's funny about that is I was reading about a lot of that stuff too, and it depends on who you talk to, because some people have actually thought that this is a leak, like that there's leaked photos that Leia has a lightsaber. Now, personally, I don't know because, from what we've been told so far, all that we're going to see is some unused footage.
Right.
Now, who knows? Maybe... because there was that scene in one of the Force Awakens trailers where she was handing a lightsaber to Rey, or maybe Rey was handing it to her. It was something like that. So, it leads me to believe that maybe, we might see something along those lines where, it's basically just sort of a rehash, or they might, repurpose that footage and through the magic of technology actually give it a new context. I don't know. I mean, I think that she should have a lightsaber.
Do you think she'll use it?
I don't think she'll use it.
Or ignite it?
I wish she would.
I think she might, just for the purpose of training Rey.
That's true. I forgot. There is that whole...
The whole thing on the Force.
Yeah.
What we believe to be Endor. So,
yes.
The first kind of shots where Rey is running around and on that little log. But there's Leia kind of just standing there, kind of watching her train. I think we might get a chance to see Leia with a lightsaber, at least ignite it, and that would just give me chills.
Oh, that would give me chills. I mean, even though a lot of people were a little critical of the whole Leia Mary Poppins thing, yeah, I mean, I got chills just seeing her finally use the Force.
Yeah, and I was wondering, what would Leia, because you never see it, with Luke, it was always on his side. Most Jedi, you always saw it on their side, but Leia always kept hers hidden.
That's kind of like how I always felt about Palpatine, too.
Yeah, he already literally had it up his sleeve.
He had it, but...
Literally up his sleeve.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that I was always curious about with Palpatine. It's he has to have a lightsaber. What would it be like? First of all, what would it look like? And what would it be like seeing him fight with a lightsaber?
Yeah, his hilt was cool too.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Chrome and gold thing was sweet.
Yeah, and there's a whole story and lore and stuff like that about how the ornamentation and everything was actually an insult to the Jedi because of all this stuff. I mean, it's really fascinating. If you guys haven't actually seen the whole story behind Palpatine's lightsaber and stuff, you should really look that up. It's really cool. But with Leia, though, the original intent was that this was supposed to be Leia's movie.
Right.
And I have no doubt in my mind that if Carrie Fisher had lived, we would have seen Leia actually fighting with the lightsaber and probably a lot of really cool stuff.
Right.
Because I think, was it her brother? It was somebody that was talking about, here's what would have happened in Episode 9 had she lived. And it was just like, it was chilling, man.
Yeah.
It was really cool. But I think ultimately we're going to get while it won't live up to the potential, I think it's going to be satisfying for the fans.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping to see her use it, at least ignite it, just to show us that she has one. You know what?
I hope so.
You know what would be interesting? No,
Tell me.
Well, no. It just hit me,
Like a lightsaber?
No.
All right.
I'm not burned.
Sorry.
But
moving on.
What if actually Leia uses it to almost knight Rey and make her...
Better be careful.
Well, I mean, of course, you're not going to actually touch her shoulders with it. But, you've seen it where they actually take the knee and they just kind of go from side to side. And that would just be cool because...
Yeah, but the only thing is, though, we've never really seen that in Star Wars. I mean, it'd be like some...
I thought
just out of the blue thing or something, I mean... Well, okay. You talking about in Rebels,
No, it wasn't. Was it Rebels or was it the Clone Wars?
Maybe it was the Clone Wars.
But I remember seeing
no,
some
you're right.
youngling
There was a knighting in that.
Yeah, and they actually cut the Padawan braid with it and everything like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Man, I got to go back and watch Clone Wars again.
Yeah.
So much stuff I've forgotten in that series.
Yeah, so I think that would be cool. And you almost have to wonder, what rank is Leia? Because, I mean, for her to, sustain herself, I mean, granted, we know she has that lineage. So we know she's powerful, but we don't know really what her rank is as far as how much did Luke train her to, because did she go to the trials?
There is a little bit in the new canon novels. I would go as far as to say she's definitely a Jedi Knight. I don't know about Master.
Okay.
There was a thing. See, that's where the old expanded universe, I thought, did a little bit better job so far. At least from what we've seen in the new canon. I think the old canon, though, wasn't even really technically canon, but the old expanded universe, I thought, did a much better job handling the whole Leia Jedi thing than the new canon does. Even though they're kind of the same, it's just there's a lot more information and stories and stuff like that in the legends. I'm
trying to remember, can a knight and someone else, or do you have to be a master? I forgot.
Well, I think, actually, and this is where it gets convoluted, too, because there's, so many, it depends on which, are we talking legends, or are we talking just the movies?
And then even, now, because, in a situation like this, she's the only one.
Well, I mean, I think
so. It's kind of like you almost kind of
had to call on a Force ghost or something.
Oh, do you just automatically just get bumped to Master when you're the last guy? I mean, by default.
Well, I don't think so, because I mean, there's still a level of skill and everything like that you'd have to
obtain.
You have to obtain. It's just there's nobody around to tell you that you're not a master. I mean, I guess you can go around saying you are, but that doesn't necessarily mean. It's really kind of strange, because even Luke, that was a little bit convoluted for a long time. Because here's the thing. In the beginning of Return of the Jedi, you assume that he's a Jedi Master at this point. Mm-hmm. Then you realize he's not even really officially a Jedi yet. Because, Yoda's like, no. Up. You got to face your father again.
Yeah.
But, you would never know that by the beginning of the movie. I mean, it looked like he was a full-blown master at that point. And then you find out he's not even really technically a knight yet.
Right. Because in order to be a knight, you have to either pass the trials or beating a Sith Lord.
Right.
Not just duel.
Yeah, beating a Sith Lord is kind of like testing out.
Yeah. So you can't just, I dueled one. Like, no, you actually have to beat them.
Yeah.
So.
And, I mean, really, if you want to be hyper technical, well, I guess he did kind of beat Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi, but, you know, depending on how you look at things.
From a certain point of view.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the thing. I mean, because otherwise, he didn't really beat them, per se.
Well, he beat Vader. He just didn't beat Palpatine.
Right.
Palpatine lost to Vader.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's going to be interesting, though, because so we see that Leia uses the Force in The Last Jedi. And then I'm assuming that if she's going to take up the mantle of training Rey in The Rise of Skywalker, there's got to be some exposition on her part to corroborate the whole, you know, yeah, I'm a Jedi. This is how much training I've had. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to pass this on to you kind of thing.
All right.
And they're going to have to do all this with a bunch of unused, recycled footage.
Well, do we know how much? I mean, I've heard like they had 8 minutes.
Is what I've heard.
I've heard 8 minutes, but it seemed like that still isn't enough time. Like to encompass everything you would need. Probably at least 20
especially
or 30
if she has some sort of a presence in this film. It's like, geez, you need almost like 15 to 20 at least.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And that's why it's going to be a really weird, you know, it's just like I was talking about on last week's show. You know, there's rumors when they were showing over Thanksgiving, you know, they had this whole like Disney special or whatever, and they showed this like Star Wars retrospective thing. And of course, a lot of it included the making of the new film as well. And there was some sort of a picture or clip or something of Warwick Davis in an Ewok costume. And this wasn't from when he was a kid. This is like him now.
Currently, right.
So it's kind of like, okay, what was that all about? And as I said on last week's show, it would make perfect sense for the Ewoks to actually make an appearance in this movie. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you know, there could be a lot of explanations for it. And the same thing with like these photos or whatever that's been released of Leia having a lightsaber. It's like, we all want her to have one, but I mean, there's a lot of different explanations for why, you know, she could have been doing it. And like I said, we even saw in the Force Awakens trailer, she was handing a lightsaber to Rey. So maybe it's that. Yeah. Or maybe it was kind of like what you alluded to in the beginning. It could have been just, you know, she fixed it or something. Mm-hmm. You know, the one that was broken in The Last Jedi. Well, what about you guys? Do you think that Leia's going to ignite the blue?
Yeah, I think hers is blue.
Yeah, I think hers is blue. Is she going to ignite the blue? Is she going to even have a lightsaber? You know, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments section below. All right, what do we got?
All right, so it has been confirmed that we will get some new Force powers in The Rise of Skywalker. Now, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what they are, right?
But they definitely have said, like, they're going to show some new things, show some old things, but there's going to be some new Force powers that will be seen. Which, I mean, you know, this stands to reason. I mean, because...
Well, technically, we've seen new Force powers in every movie of the sequel trilogy.
So far, yes. You know, Kylo...
was stopping the laser blast in, like, midair.
Yeah, been holding it there until he actually left to the mind reading.
Yeah, the mind reading thing. That's something that we never really saw before.
Then, of course, with The Last Jedi, of course, the big one with Luke.
Yeah.
But
it's sort of like force projection, kind of.
Now, even the whole Snoke thing with melding the minds together.
Yeah, that was a new one. Well, and a couple of Snokes. Like, Snoke would do things, and this is one of the things that JJ says where some of the things that we'll see are not necessarily just new Force powers, but older stuff presented in a newer way.
Yeah.
I would say Snoke is a really good example of this because, you know, he would do a lot of things, you know, like when he basically is picking Hux up and slamming him to the ground and dragging him around and stuff like that. I mean, we never really saw that kind of telekinesis thing done in quite that way.
Right. Or even the one that would really impress me.
The Rey one?
No,
that's what impressed me when he dragged her over and kind of suspended her in midair.
Yeah, I mean that was
cool.
I mean the whole when she tried to use the Force and take her saber, and then he swung it back and hit her in the back of the head.
That was hilarious.
That was priceless. Like stupid.
See, that was actually one of the things that I thought. And you could probably make the argument it really wasn't Star Wars humor either. Mm-hmm. But I did actually think that was pretty funny.
It was.
I thought that was funny.
It was intended to be kind of funny and kind of like intimidating at the same time.
Yeah.
But no, the one I loved was the when he shot Kylo while he was kneeling through the floor.
Oh, right.
When he did like the Force lightning through the floor and it popped up and hit I've never seen that before. I was like,
and that's, once again, it's Force lightning, something that we all have experienced like ad nauseum, but I mean, presented in a different way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that actually begs the question then, what new Force powers, I mean, this is really going to be tough to speculate, but what new Force powers do you think we could possibly see?
I don't know. I mean, I think, honestly, the one I can go with would be this. This would be the biggest showcase of the Force if Luke comes back.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, if Luke comes back, maybe I don't necessarily think it's going to be a full resurrection, but maybe if he expands the abilities of a Force ghost, much the way that Yoda obviously did in The Last Jedi. Mm-hmm. He was doing stuff we never really saw Force ghosts do, and he kind of interacted very much with the physical world. Mm-hmm. Now, there are a lot of people that make the argument that so did Obi-Wan when he sat on that log. Mm-hmm. So there is that, but
True.
But I don't know. It was almost like Yoda. There was like a slight blue glow about him, but he almost looked the way he did.
Yeah.
As he did when he was living.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Luke will do something like that. Maybe Luke will actually be able to, to fight. Because that's what everybody was really more or less thinking, is that it's going to come down to it, and Palpatine obviously would be more than a match for Rey or Kylo. Mm-hmm. Now, there's some people that say, according to leaked scripts or whatever, that the two of them together somehow can defeat him.
They'll be powerful enough.
They'll be powerful enough, which, that could make some sense, but I don't know. There's also the other one where maybe Luke comes back and actually, they fight one last time. And I wouldn't actually mind seeing a Luke versus Palpatine battle. I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, because that's like, we got it with Yoda, and we thought that was like the ultimate, but it's kind of like, Luke being...
It would be like a rematch because...
Well, the match that never really took place because it never got a chance to.
Well, yeah, but it was kind of one of those things that, when Palpatine hit him with the Force lightning and everything, and Luke just... he just was not powerful enough to deflect it, stand up to it, or anything. Mm-hmm. Now, Luke is like this, basically a grandmaster of the Force. Mm-hmm. So now if he stood up against Palpatine, especially if he is a Force ghost, that could be really interesting.
Indeed, yeah.
But hopefully, what I hope is that we just don't get anything cheesy.
Right, like shoehorned in, yeah.
Yeah, or anything like that. Now, I'll be honest, I would like to see some of kind of almost like what's depicted in here, where some of the more video game stuff.
Yeah, like I said, like if you, like I've always wanted to see, and I thought we were going to see in The Last Jedi, was like something where like a Star Destroyer was coming and Luke used the Force to pull it out of orbit or something like that.
Or another thing like, you remember those like little Clone Wars short animated things? They were like 3 minutes or something.
Oh, yeah.
And there was that one where, all these like troopers were coming at Yoda and he just like waves his hand and they just all go flying like hundreds of them. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's actually what I thought we were going to see in The Last Jedi too, honestly. When all the, First Order forces were there, and Luke just comes, waves his hand, and it's like they just go flying or something.
Right.
That would be cool.
Well, the other thing too is
now some people might consider that cheesy though.
Well, like even with Rey, like in The Last Jedi, just because we saw Luke like lift stones and stuff, but when she held all those stones for them to come out, and they were just kind of looking at her like.
Well, and even in the trailer, when she's running and then she does that like backflip and jumps on the TIE fighter. That's pretty impressive.
Yep, indeed. Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. But what about you guys? What kind of force powers do you think we're going to see in the Rise of Skywalker? Let us know in the comments below. All right, what's up next?
All right, man. So, what is your favorite moment in Return of the Jedi?
Ooh, favorite moment in Return of the Jedi. Again, with these, like, you're really stumping me lately on some of these things.
That's my job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it probably has to be like a two-part answer, because my whole favorite sequence would be the whole throne room stuff with the Emperor, Luke, and Vader.
Yeah.
I can narrow down my favorite moment. My favorite moment in Return of the Jedi is actually one of my favorite moments of the entire saga. And that is when Luke and Vader are alone on the AT-AT, and they're basically having that conversation. Yeah, where, it's the first time that we see Vader in more of a, I guess, with his guard down a little bit. Like, he's having a normal conversation.
Yeah, it's almost like a parental moment. Like,
yeah, I mean, it very much is. And it's an emotional thing. It's where Vader's kind of letting his guard down and really, I mean, for lack of a better term, he's speaking from the heart, you know? And I just think it's this really great moment where you're seeing Vader in this different light, and it was really cool to me.
Yeah, I remember seeing that scene as a kid, and I was just like on pins and needles. Because, like, for them to be, because like the last time they were that close to each other, like, he's all trying to lop him or cut him to shreds and at least lopped his hand off.
Yeah, and Luke was pretty bold in that scene too. I mean, he was saying some stuff to Vader that normally would have gotten him choked out.
Yeah, and the fact that, they're just walking, just kind of taking this casual stroll down there, and even Vader had to acknowledge, like, man, you are powerful, and just, you just almost kind of wonder, like, what all was going through Vader's mind at that time.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and the best thing too is when they show the shot, where the camera's basically head on to Vader, and you see like Luke, kind of over the shoulder, and Vader's just, like, you can tell he's a little conflicted, It's kind of like, he's like, man, I kind of wish it didn't have to go down this way, but
yeah,
hey, man,
it is what it is.
Slave to the dark side, so off we go.
Exactly.
Well, what about you? What's your favorite moment?
It's definitely the whole throne room. The throne room scene is definitely, especially like when, of course, when they finally actually get into the battle and Luke kicks Vader down the steps, you're just like, whoa, like, Luke isn't playing. Like, you're just like, okay. And then Vader, you could tell, like, Vader really had to, like, all right, I got to really bring it now. Like, this is... Yeah,
it's like, it was different from The Empire Strikes Back, where he was more like toying with Luke. It's like this time he really has to try to fight him and hold his own.
And, like, you could tell because he's using two hands on a saber now instead of one, and Vader could kind of like stalk Luke. But he even kind of did it, and it was weird because Vader looked a little bit unsettled when he was looking for Luke, when Luke was kind of hiding behind that pillar. It's like he was kind of like wondering, like, okay, where the heck is he? Because he's hiding. And
I still wonder, though, because now I think after that whole scene that I identified as my favorite, it almost seemed like Vader's attitude changed too. Like, he was, everybody thinks that at the end when he finally betrays the Emperor or whatever, and that's when, Luke's all like, Father, please, or whatever. And it's like it finally got to him. But I think a lot of that was planted in that scene.
Yeah.
Where it was kind of like he's feeling the conflict, and he's remembering what it was like to be Anakin, and he's remembering what it was like to be betrayed by the Emperor. I mean, he was lied to about Padme, and he remembers all this.
Well, yeah, especially when Luke is like on this whole catwalk, and he's just like, and I kind of found it funny how, like, Luke just kind of puts it out there, like, I see the good in you, the conflict. And, Vader, he's just like, he's saying this in front of the Emperor, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Emperor's got to kind of be wondering, too, like, okay. So Vader's like, there is no conflict, and he's just kept trying to, like, reaffirm himself, like, no, there isn't.
Yeah, trying to be all like the Palpatine, hey, there's no conflict, we're good.
Yeah, we're good here. Yeah, exactly. And then,
it's like, shut up, Luke.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
you're getting me in trouble with the boss here.
Exactly. That's kind of how I felt. And then, of course, they're running around and, of course, Vader's trying to, taunt him. And Luke is like, I don't want to fight you. I will not fight you. And of course, Luke leaves himself open because he's talking to his father through the Force, which I thought that was cool. And then, he kind of left himself vulnerable. And that's when Vader kind of felt like, oh, you have a sister. So that whole line too, he's like, well, your feelings have betrayed her too. And then, it's like, okay, Luke realized, okay, you know what? I can't let you get to her. So, yep, it's game on. And then that whole choir part, was my favorite.
Yeah. I mean, that whole scene was, and I mean, the whole sequence really was stunning. Yeah. It was to the point where, as much as I love Han Solo and all that stuff, whenever they would cut to those scenes, I'm like, no, go back to the Luke and Empire thing. I mean, it was the first time that I actually wanted to see more of that. Whereas in Empire, it was kind of the opposite. Not so much with the Luke versus Vader duel, but when they were dealing with the whole Yoda and Luke scenes. Mm. As much as I loved it, I was like, no, I want to see the Han Leia storyline. Mm-hmm. That whole thing. That was more interesting to me than the Luke Yoda stuff.
Gotcha. I will say, though, in Return of the Jedi, like, the first time, like, Luke, when he's about to jump off the little plank, basically, into the Sarlacc pit, and he turns, and he pops up, and he has a lightsaber, and it's green. I was just like, whoa. Like,
yeah.
That was
strange. And I did wonder what the significance of that was, too.
Well, because even on the box, though, on the VHS tape that I had of the Return of the Jedi, his blade had no color. And I think they did that on purpose. I mean, granted, the movie has been out for a while, so I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know.
But
it might have been more of a mistake on the
artist. But I mean, it's kind of, but again, anytime they showed the lightsabers on the cover of those boxes, they never had color. So I was kind of like, all right, I'm still thinking it's going to be blue because I didn't, you didn't know any other color at that time. So when he came out with a green one, I'm like, oh, like this must mean he's really powerful now. So yeah, I think that was enough.
Yeah, that's a good point because up until that point, it'd been the Jedi all had blue lightsabers and Sith had red.
Yep, it was blue and red, and that's all you saw. So, and we didn't see Yoda at the time. So yeah, so that was a sweet moment for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, and there's, Return of the Jedi is one of those movies that actually has a lot of really cool moments to it. I mean, again, Empire definitely is superior film and all that, but I will say that a lot of times, people, because Return of the Jedi would definitely be my second favorite.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
I mean, as much as I love A New Hope and everything like that, first of all, I hate every time there's a film series, I don't usually like to go back to the first movie because I don't want to see everybody meeting each other again for the first time.
You want the chemistry already there.
Yeah, you want the chemistry already there. So I usually go like second on, or whatever the case may be. But just a lot of the story, the sequences, like I really enjoyed in Return of the Jedi, the whole when Luke actually had an adventure with Han and Chewie and Leia. I thought that was kind of cool because we hadn't really seen that. I mean, even in New Hope, you get a little bit of it because they're meeting and then, of course, they have to escape the Death Star and all that. But then they kind of go separate again. Mm-hmm. In Empire, it's just Luke on one end, Han and Leia, Chewie, and 3PO and everything on the other. And R2 usually goes with Luke. And then in Return of the Jedi, it was like, okay, they had to regroup again, with the whole Jabba the Hutt thing. So I thought when they all went to Endor was kind of cool, and they got caught up in that trap and, it's like, Han, can you reach my lightsaber? Yeah, hold on. And it was kind of, they're all making jokes and
right.
of course, they do end up going on their separate ways again. But I thought that there was a lot of really cool moments there.
Definitely. Speaking of the original trilogy, so remember we were talking a couple podcasts ago about the whole Greedo and Han thing?
Yes.
So I finally watched it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
I still haven't gotten to it.
Yeah, I finally watched it, and this time they made the shots simultaneous.
Okay,
So,
I'd heard something about that, but I wasn't sure if that was really true or not.
So it made it so like they both shot at the same time.
Well, that's a little better, I guess.
Yeah, but then he still, lets out that little clunky word or whatever, which
More crunky or something,
it's like just so unnecessary to me, but whatever.
Yeah, there's people saying that on social media now,
So
which I think is funny. But again, Lucas needs to stop tampering with these movies.
indeed.
Unless he wants to make a special edition of The Last Jedi, I might go for that. But I don't know, we'll see. But what about you guys? What is your favorite moment from Return of the Jedi? Let us know in the comment section below, or you can also hit us up on our Twitter and Facebook at headtoheadsw. All right, what do we got?
All right, we next have...
Wait, are we leaving the Cantina?
Yeah, actually, you know what? We are.
Wow. Yeah, see, it just goes by so quick when we're discussing all this stuff.
Yes,
I just
we are.
realized that myself. I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah, we definitely...
We're kind of done with the Cantina.
Yep. All right. So next we have Duel of the Fates. All right, so this week, who would you rather learn from? Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan?
Ooh. It's funny too. And now both of us can probably have...
Especially after reading that book.
That's what I was about to say. After reading Master and Apprentice,
Yep.
I think that we can really get into this, but I'm going to have to say Qui-Gon.
Yeah, me too.
Just because I think it would be more well-rounded.
Yeah.
Like Obi-Wan definitely, I think is... But here's the thing, too. And this is something, I don't know if we've ever done this before. I mean, it's getting to the point where we have so many episodes now. This is like, we're almost at... If you were to go, we're going by seasons, but if you were to just run them straight through, we're on episode like 61 or 62 now. That's a lot of podcasts.
Indeed.
So it's hard to say, like, I almost have to go back and see, like, what have we done? Because first of all, I don't want us to be repetitive, but there's all these interesting things. Like, for instance, and I thought of this. Let's take this Duel of the Fates and spin it a little bit.
All right.
Who would you rather be trained by, young Obi-Wan or old Obi-Wan? Because there's a definite style difference between the two. If it were me, it would be old Obi-Wan. Because if you look at the way that he trains Luke in 4 and the way he deals with them, I mean, we see a little bit of him in 5, but a lot of that whole conversation in 6, it's like he has a little bit more of a Qui-Gon kind of thing going, There's a little bit more of a less dogmatic, more practical, more, wisdom. Yeah, kind of the wise and old master kind of thing. Whereas, the younger Obi-Wan was a little bit more, by the book, follow the rules, criticizing. You could say that, honestly, Obi-Wan is every bit as responsible for Anakin turning as Palpatine was.
I don't know. Because on one hand, I feel like Obi-Wan in his younger years was more direct and upfront, and you knew exactly where he was coming from, whereas old Obi-Wan, he twisted the truth a lot, and it's like, I don't know if I would really there's a part of me that's kind of like,
well, you may not necessarily fully trust him, but
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like, all right, and you got shades of that in which was unfortunate because they left out the whole deleted it was a deleted scene, but in the Revenge of the Sith, where, you know, basically the Jedi Council basically was trying to get Anakin to spy on Palpatine for them.
Oh, yeah,
and they
right.
sent Obi-Wan to make it a directive to Anakin. And Anakin is just kind of like, wait a minute. So you want me to spy? Like, that's kind of illegal. Like, why would you want me to do that? And so, of course, Obi-Wan made the pitch for it. Like, well, this is kind of extreme times. Like, normally we wouldn't do this, but, you know, desperate times calls for desperate measures sometimes. So, you know, you could, but I still feel like young Obi-Wan was a little bit more honest, direct.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was.
You kind of knew where he.
Yeah, you knew where you stood with him, kind of a thing.
Whereas old Obi-Wan, you know, he was kind of like from the, you know, the outset is pretty much like, because I like I told you, I just watched The New Hope to see the Greedo thing. So, you know, he's like, when Luke asked about his father, you know, you can see the look on Obi-Wan's face. He's like, yeah, you know, like you could tell he's up to something. It's like, yeah,
it's
young
like
people
that
of mine.
It's like, you know, he's a very good friend, very flammable.
Yeah, and this is kind of like, all right, what's with you, dude? You know.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I always thought was hilarious about A New Hope, and a lot of people don't catch stuff like this, but I guess it's the way my mind works. But anyway, it's kind of like, okay, he gets back. He's basically seeing an Owen and Beru like smoldering in the background. It's like, well, I guess you can come with me to Alderaan now. And
well, yeah, and he just like,
you know, it's kind of like, hey, man, how about a little, hey, sorry about your aunt and uncle, you know?
Not only that, but it's like, okay, and that's one of the things I've always wondered, like, why didn't he stop Luke? Like, okay, if he knew that he was going to run into like the stormtroopers, and he's allegedly supposed to be like,
well, now here's the thing. I mean, I'm thinking that he probably knew they weren't there anymore. So he knew that Luke was going to see the aftermath that was going to happen. Now, who knows? That might be reading too much into it. I don't know. But it just seems like, I mean, I don't think it was a setup. It wasn't like he actually sent the stormtroopers like,
No.
hey, I know where they are, you know, or anything like that.
here, here's $20. Hurry
Yeah,
up.
exactly. But I mean, he definitely, I think, was taking a situation and using it to his advantage.
Once again, this is kind of
Right.
like,
And I know it's a little shady.
yeah, that's why I'm kind of like, I'd probably go like prequel Obi-Wan, honestly. At least probably, like, to me, I feel like Revenge of the Sith Obi-Wan's probably the coolest because at that point,
Yeah.
he recognized, and they kind of had more of that friendship bond. Like,
It was, and he was a lot, like, Obi-Wan was actually a lot looser in that movie, too. Like,
Yeah.
he wasn't as dogmatic.
exactly.
Of course, things were falling apart, too, though, you know? I mean, you got to look at that.
Yeah. And I think he was just they kind of built that bond where it's like, okay, they began to trust each other. And I think in Attack of the Clones, it's like, you know, no different than, you know, when you train certain students, and myself included, it's like, okay, when I was younger, you couldn't trust me with a lot of stuff because I'm still a kid, you know, but it's like, as you get older, you know, it's like, all right, you can handle this. I don't have to worry about you, and go off into your own mission and do your own thing. And you pretty much just assuming things are going to be okay. And I think that was kind of like the point where I think Obi-Wan kind of felt a little bit responsible. So I think that's why he was trying to hide stuff from Luke, because he was afraid of repeating that failure again.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the failure that he went through, especially when you see it in Revenge of the Sith, that really, like, you kind of always knew it, but when you really see it.
Especially like the pain. He's like, you were my brother, Anakin. Like, I loved you. Like, how could you do this to me? It's like getting cheated on or something like that. Like, it was.
Yeah, and I mean, it was really painful. And that's why, honestly, it's going to be really interesting to see the Obi-Wan series, because now we're going to see almost like that in-between phase. Like, we're not quite at the episode 4 yet, but we're beyond episode 3, obviously. So it's going to be interesting to see where Obi-Wan's character falls in that. And maybe we'll get a little bit more backstory, because even though it might be a little bit forced retconning if they try to have him meet Vader up again, it is interesting to know, how does he know that he's more machine now than man? Because the universe at large just knows Darth Vader is course, I guess if you're running around with a Darth name and you're kind of a Sith Lord, it doesn't really take a whole lot of brain power to go, oh, yeah, new Sith Lord.
But he also, he already knew who he was anyway for two reasons. One, before he even battled Anakin, they saw the video of Palpatine in his office when he named him.
Oh, yeah,
Vader.
right. And he did name him Darth Vader. That's right.
So then that was one. And then, of course, he knew what happened to him. So he knew both legs were amputated.
And
then he was
like, okay, if you're
torched.
Still there, then
you have some medical help, man.
Exactly. Yep.
So yeah,
mechanical help there.
Yeah, definitely. He stopped by Benson's on the way to, get his orthopedic replacements, whatnot. But yeah,
well, it'll just be interesting to see the dynamic, first of all, of if they mention Vader, if they do any of that stuff, how's he going to react? Like where he's at as a character. It's going to be interesting because then going back to Qui-Gon Jinn, Qui-Gon, I think, just had a really practical, he's sort of knew when to bend the rules a little bit to achieve the greater good.
Right. He's not so dogmatic.
Right. But sometimes that could get back to bite him. And I thought that's what the Master and Apprentice book did so well. It showed how, when you look at the Phantom Menace and stuff like that, it's almost like Obi-Wan's just like too by the book or whatever. But you actually see how a lot of Qui-Gon's decisions really came back to bite him in Master and Apprentice, and how Obi-Wan actually kind of bailed him out of some things.
Yeah, that and the fact that he had a lot of influence from Dooku, and Dooku was kind of like...
Yeah, and Dooku was a little shady. By this time he was starting to, turn to the dark side a little bit, and, so he had a little bit of an unorthodox teaching style going, too. So, I mean, I think that there's a lot that you can learn from just the various style of these characters and like how they each approach, even as all Jedi, how they each approach, their whole training style and stuff like that. So, I mean, if it's just between these two guys.
Yeah, I'm going Qui-Gon.
I'm going Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
And what about you guys? You going to go Qui-Gon? Somebody who's a little bit, I guess a little looser with the rules and, maybe believes in the greater good? Or Obi-Wan, who you always know where you stand with him.
Very dogmatic.
He's very dogmatic, very by the book. Knows what he's doing. He has his mission. He knows what he's going to do. He's going to go out and accomplish it. There's a good argument to be made for both, and we'd be interested really to hear what you guys think. So let us know in the comment section below what you guys think, Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon. All right. What do we got next?
Next, we have From a Certain Point of View.
Okay.
All right, this is our feature topic.
Here we go.
Final predictions before the Rise of Skywalker. Let's have it.
Well, it's coming out on December 19th, technically.
Yeah.
This week, this Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
You and I are going to go see it.
Yes, sir.
And then this Friday, you and I are going to do a little review on it. But, I mean, as far as predictions go, it's really tough because that's what we've been doing this whole time.
Right.
And now we're at, this is it. I mean, if you think about it, and this is really funny because this just popped in my head, believe it or not. This is the last time that we're going to speculate on this show about this movie. The next time that we get together to do a podcast, we'll have seen it.
Yeah.
And that's a reality that's just hitting me.
Yeah. So I think for me, my predictions are, I think ultimately, the good side is going to win, or going to prevail. But I think there's going to be some major casualties. Oh,
without question. I don't think everybody's getting out of this alive.
No, not at all.
I'm gonna make a bold prediction. I'm gonna say the Ewoks are actually back in this.
Man, a bold prediction about the Ewoks.
Hey, that's a pretty big one. First of all, it would be kind of cool because it's the third movie of this trilogy, and they came in the third movie of the last trilogy. Secondly, it would make the most sense.
It would be cool to see Wicket as like almost like the headmaster of that.
Well, the thing about that is that technically it would actually be, what's his name, King Chirpa or something. It would be his daughter that would actually succeed him. Mm-hmm. Now, it would be kind of cool if Wicket married into that and, somehow he became Chief Wicket or something. But, I mean, from a plot standpoint, it makes sense. And keep in mind, this is coming from the fact that I was never a really big fan of the Ewoks.
Yeah, that's why I was surprised.
But I think that it could be a really cool plot device in this situation. So I would actually be all for it. Another prediction, I think Palpatine is definitely back in the flesh. Mm-hmm. I think that it's really, man, predictions in this are so difficult. Mm-hmm. Just because there's so many different things that they could do. Like, I don't think that Rey is going to be a clone.
Okay.
Even though that would probably make the most sense from a plot standpoint. But I don't know. I think that she's going to be either related to Palpatine somehow, or Palpatine actually had a hand somewhere in maybe influencing her parents to abandon her or whatever. I think that Lando's probably going to play a fairly good size role in this movie.
Does Lando die?
Probably. I think probably. Mm-hmm. Only because it seems to me like they're trying to, I hate to say it, but it looks like they're trying to get rid of all the original trilogy characters.
Right.
And I mean, it would make sense. Because even though it would be really interesting to me to see Lando's, because think about the original Zahn trilogy back, from the early 90s that kicked off the entire Star Wars craze once again. And there's a whole expanded universe of stuff that went well beyond what episodes 7, 8, and 9 would have been. And it was fascinating stuff, but I just think that from where Disney appears to be going with these movies and everything like that, it seems to me like Lando may not make it out of this one.
Okay. I think...
I mean, let's go by character. Kylo. What do you think will happen to him?
Kylo, I think he's going to be redeemed somehow, some way. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say with that.
All right. I'm going to go a little step further. He is going to be redeemed, but I think he's going to sacrifice himself.
Okay.
Leia.
Hear me. No, I think Leia. I don't think they're going to kill her off.
I don't either. I think
they're going to. She's going to kind of like just go away. I think she's going to kind of like retire almost.
Yeah.
Just kind of just like, I can't do this anymore. But I've entrusted this to you all. You guys have stepped up, and you have to be the new light.
Yep. I want my gold watch and. Or
I think she retires on on Naboo somewhere.
I mean, they're going to have to do something because unfortunately they don't have Carrie to actually shoot new scenes or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, something like that's going to happen. What about, you think the Falcon's going to make it out of this? I don't, only because there's a song on the soundtrack called The Falcons. I forgot what it's called.
Or the Falcons.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like, yeah. I don't think the Falcon, I think that's how we lose Chewie and Lando.
Oh, you think Chewie's going to go too? Mm-hmm. This could be a very sad movie.
Yeah, I think that's why you get all the, when you start hearing stuff about the emotions and people just feeling so emotional in this movie. I think because this is supposed to be the climactic thing, and it's in order for the big game, you got to lose, and I think that you're going to lose some big people in order for this to work. And even the cryptic stuff where
I hate to say it, but
with 3PO saying like, I just want one last look at all my, like there's this ominous feeling that, okay,
hey, we're not all going to make it out of this, guys.
It's going to have that Rogue One vibe when you see the Death Star kind of like.
That's true. I mean, when you really stop and think about it, like everybody in Rogue One just
got wiped out.
Yeah, wiped out. So it's not beyond the realm. And this is actually a much bigger battle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I could see that. What about Rey?
I think somehow, some way, Palpatine pushes Rey to the dark side, and Kylo is going to have to go get her and bring her back because
that would actually be a
there.
Compelling story. Like if he was redeemed first, but then she gets turned and he's kind of like, no, look, I fell for this too, and it's kind of a sham. So that actually goes back to something that we said, man, even before the Last Jedi, I think, where and I remember. I know we talked about it on the podcast, but I remember first we talked about it, before we even had the show, just in our general conversations, which is why we do this show. Mm-hmm. But where it would be interesting if Kylo went to the light and Rey went to the dark, like if they flip-flopped. Mm-hmm. What an interesting, weird dynamic that would be.
Yeah, and I think because you remember how we were saying, like, okay, we were watching the featurette, mm-hmm. and we saw that one shot, of course, at the end with Rey looking dark.
Dark Rey.
Well, they actually put that in a TV spot again.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah.
Oh, man, now I might have to watch these.
No, I mean, you don't have to. It's.
You're right. We're 3 days away.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Let's just dude, just wait.
Hold together. But yeah, they did show that, and I think that's kind of either a premonition of her feelings, and that's where she could end up if she's not careful.
Yeah, you mean kind of like the cave with Luke.
Yeah. Or I think it's something where Palpatine somehow gets to Rey, and Kylo has to be the one to bring her back.
Now, do you believe any of these rumors about how it's almost that Voldemort thing where Palpatine has to possess certain people and then
I think
he can finally become an embodied?
I think his thing is more so he's trying to siphon the powers from them. I think that's a new Force power. We've never seen that before. When we were talking earlier about new Force powers.
Yeah, where it could be basically like you're absorbing.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, him, because he said, you're coming together would be your undoing. And I think that's kind of like you guys teaming up. You're thinking you're going to beat me, but this is what I wanted all along to get you to, so I can basically drain you.
Kids, I've been at this a while.
Yeah. So
I can out-Sith you.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree. And I think that there's a lot of things. What's really difficult to predict, though, is where the Sith troopers fit into all this.
I think the Sith troopers are going to be people who are, or soldiers who can use the Force.
Yeah, without question.
And I think they're going to contest either people who may be out there who still are Force sensitive, like Broom Kid, you know what I'm saying, but just maybe older, or we've even seen like babies like Baby Yoda use the Force, so we don't know whether species are like that and are just in tune with the Force already at a young age. I think they're going to be there to contend with Kylo if case Kylo gets out of hand, like he can dispatch them.
Well, it's going to be interesting too, because I've often wondered, is there going to be a three-way battle? Palpatine and his forces, like essentially it'd be the Empire versus the First Order versus the Resistance.
Yeah.
Which, it could be.
It could be at some point.
All right. Predictions for the final scene that, JJ and Kevin Smith and all these guys were like, oh, this last shot is going to melt everybody's mind or whatever.
I think it has something to do with...
Yeah, I mean, obviously we can't guess what the scene is, but what do you think it has to do with?
I think it's a I think it has to do with like Luke and everybody. Like, I think everybody just kind of, I think Rey survives.
Oh, I definitely think Rey's going to survive.
But I think it's going to be something with like Luke, Anakin, Yoda. Like, I think
that's what I was thinking too. Something like, you know, bringing back a bunch of these people, or like Anakin making a return somehow, or, you know, I mean, I think that would be.
It would be cool, like, if they, like, if Palpatine's plan is to siphon energy from Kylo and Rey, to counter that, you get the strongest of the Jedi who are passed on to give it back to them.
Yeah, like re-energize them.
Re-energize them, yeah, like.
It's just so weird to. I mean, I partially can't wait to see this movie just to see where it finally goes, because this movie has actually caused, I think, more speculation even than The Force Awakens in a lot of ways.
Because I mean, I think it's about equal, because on one hand you don't know, well, what's the story, but then at the end you're still like, what's the story? Yeah. And I think but more importantly, now you know the story has to end everything. So
right.
Like, that's the biggest thing, is like, how is he going to wrap up the entire saga?
It's going to be. I do not envy his task, but I'll tell you what, though, I'm really energized, partially because JJ is so excited. I mean, he's walking around like, yeah, man, I did it. I nailed this. Mm-hmm. Well, especially you all are going to love this. So
yeah, especially with, you know, George Lucas, you know, kind of really, I don't want to say being at the helm, but being, you know, the co-pilot kind of to this story. Mm-hmm. You know, him actually really sitting down with him is like, okay, how would you end this, and how would you? And then I think he's taking some of that, because I think that's George, his biggest gripes is the fact that, like, no one used any of his stuff. And so I think JJ is trying to also give not even just fan service to us, but, you know, father service to George, in the sense of, like,
I mean, every time I can't help but think of that.
All those videos.
Yeah, those videos. So like, George, what are they called?
When George Lucas is critiquing, like, the movies, like, man. Those are priceless.
I mean, this is so funny that guy that plays him is just so dead on.
It's kind of like when that guy, I forgot his name, but who does the John Madden impersonation.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and it's hilarious.
It's great. But I mean, I just think that we're finally in for a real treat. That I think this is definitely going to bring. I think this is going to actually continue what The Mandalorian has started, and that's bringing the fan base back together. And I'm just looking forward to coming back to everybody and saying, guys,
if you do not go see this movie,
I mean, yeah,
you are on that new crack.
Yeah, that, you know what, JJ's done it, and you know, that's the end of the review. This has got to be spoiler free.
Yeah.
The spoiler free thing is going to be tough, especially because we're going to be on this high because we'll have just seen the movie.
Yep.
You know, and it's like,
yeah,
I really want to talk about this.
Yeah, we're going to have to actually take some notes and just like, what can't we talk about?
We're going to probably, we're definitely going to have to concentrate on that one. That's going to be tough. The fun one's going to be just exploding with every spoiler known to man and really getting into it. And I'm thinking what we should probably do. I don't remember if we did this with Last Jedi or not, because did we start this podcast after the last? Yeah, we did, after Last Jedi came out. But what was it that we did? Here goes me and my memory. What was it that we did where there was something that came out? Well, maybe it was Celebration. And where what we did was we kept our segments, but we made them all Celebration. Mm-hmm. That's probably what we should do for the spoiler version of Rise of Skywalker, is just take, you know, our usual Cantina stuff and then maybe our Duel of the Fates and just make it all about the Rise of Skywalker.
Definitely.
Well, that's what we're going to do. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? What are your predictions? What do you think? And by the way, when we say what are your predictions, it could be anything. What do you think is going to happen in the movie? What do you think the end's going to be? What do you think the box office performance is going to be? You know, that's something else we haven't really discussed either. You know, because is this movie going to be another $2 billion movie? Tough to say.
You know what would be awesome?
What?
If this movie makes $4 billion. The same amount that it cost George to sell.
Well, I think it was like Force Awakens through like Rogue One, Solo, Last Jedi. They made their $4 billion back. So that part's cool. But yeah, I mean, I would really like to see, I mean, realistically, maybe a billion and a half, but I would like to see it do, crazy good numbers.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's it. Maybe you guys want to talk about your prediction as far as box office. Maybe you want to talk about your predictions as far as like what the fan base is going to do and think and feel. And, I mean, even though we're all one as far as Star Wars goes, we all have very different opinions about all these films. So leave your thoughts in the comments, or hit us up at Head to Head SW on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And of course, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And I believe it's time for what I always identify as my favorite segment in the whole wide world. And how's that for a segue?
I know, right?
And that segment is called Clear Your Mind. That's right. This is where we answer your questions. We take your questions and then we mangle them. Sometimes,
that's a nice way of putting it.
Well, I mean, because sometimes, admittedly, people will ask questions that, we're kind of like, oh, not sure. Because sometimes they're really cut and dry. It's like almost like an encyclopedia kind of thing.
Like, yes.
Other times, though, they can get really philosophical where you have to really stop and think about it. So which one does our first question fall under?
Well, we shall see. Adam Cofield asked the question, why didn't Vader fly out into space at the end of Rogue One?
So it's a philosophical question. Great. These are the ones that are the fun ones to answer.
Yes.
Well, actually, it's more of a scientific one.
Well, sort of.
No, kind of. I mean, the cheesy answer, you guys really want the answer that Lucas would give, right after he would normally say something to the effect of, guys, it's a movie, let it go.
I was about to say, because that's the way I wrote it. Right.
But
I wonder how I wrote it.
The answer is, and this is actually in universe, this is true, I'm not making this up. This is a dead-on true thing. What happens oftentimes in Star Wars ships, because people have said this, like my father used to say this all the time. Millennium Falcon's coming in, and then it goes into the dock or whatever, and it's like everybody's just standing there. It's like, okay, how's that possible? You got this like open space thing going. So what it is they got these force fields, okay, that kind of cover the opening. And then when a ship flies through, what happens is like the force field kind of forms around it. So the ship can go through, and I guess, I forgot the technical parts of it. I actually read this in one of their, companion books or whatever. But as it goes through, force fields like kind of forming around it, and then obviously it lets it pass. And you can block that, or you can, let the ship go. What happened when the whole thing blew apart or whatever is almost like an emergency kind of a thing where the force field formed. Now, the interesting thing is, though, if you really watch that scene, it doesn't really seem that way. It almost seems like, because you get all this wind and everything else. So that's the explanation I think that they would give, but I don't know, it's tough to say.
Yeah, because it's like, one, you see Vader's cape is still flapping. And
so then the other answer, of course, would be very similar to what happened when, he was throwing all those objects at Luke in Empire Strikes Back, and then one of them, broke the glass. Luke goes flying, but Vader, of course, uses the Force to basically be able to stand there. And that's pretty much what I think he was doing in Rogue One.
Yeah.
This is another one of those Jedi powers that they don't really talk about, but, they can do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only thing I was like, okay, I can understand Vader doing it, but how come the stormtroopers behind him didn't fly out? But,
they could do that now?
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what? And it's one of those things, I mean, who knows? Look, Gareth Edwards had a lot of problems, Don't forget that Rogue One had all these reshoots and then they had that other director come in and write a bunch of scenes and, direct stuff. They're changing endings. They're doing stuff. And then don't forget, too, that the trailer had like 90% of the trailer, or the first one,
right.
wasn't even in the movie.
Right.
So, I mean, if the least problem is how did Vader, stay on the deck or whatever when the ship blew apart? Let's just consider ourselves, fortunate that might be the least of the problems. But hey, look, pick any of your in-universe explanations you want. Force field drops, or he uses the Force, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
All right.
All right. What's next?
So next question comes from... It's like, look, we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't know.
That's not how the Force works. Anyway, so Vince Shapiro asked the question, based on what we have seen in the trailers, what scene are you most looking forward to seeing in context?
Oh, yes, the opinion-based ones. I like these.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Palpatine returning to the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what I'm most looking forward to seeing in context. Because depending on how they do this is really going to depend. Because look, they've got all this stuff that they've been hitting us. They've been beating us over the head with Palpatine, right? First, when they did the very first teaser trailer.
Yeah, with the laugh.
Yeah, with the laugh. And then, the lights come up at Celebration. And it's Ian McDiarmid, the actor that plays him, going, roll it again. And it's like, okay. From then on, then you get dialogue. And it's like, then the poster where it's a giant Palpatine head, and it's like, they've really been emphasizing the fact, Palpatine's going to be back in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If we don't see him until the last, 15, 20 minutes of the movie, that's going to be a pretty big letdown.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that this guy has to be introduced actually within the first act. Let us know how he came back, what happened. He's obviously going to be the bad guy. And that's what I really want to see in context.
Okay. I think for me, it's going to be Dark Ray.
That's actually probably I don't even know why that didn't occur to me. But that's true, because all we see is that one clip.
Yeah.
And then that's it. There's no context for
None.
this. The funny thing is with Palpatine, you could guess how he came back.
Yeah.
You could speculate about it or whatever. This Dark Ray thing, it's like, I don't even know what...
Well, yeah, I mean, especially for her being so consistent all the way through, and it's like there's been no signs
where does she,
of dark...
Where does she, build this, super cool, flippy little lightsaber
Yeah, like
thing
the little Swiss Army saber or whatever. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's a little mechanical marvel, isn't it?
Exactly. It's like the girl has a broken lightsaber. She couldn't fix that. She's
right.
like, what do we do with this?
Right.
Now she built a double-bladed lightsaber. I don't know. It's like, okay.
Yeah, that
how powerful are
out, and it's kind of like, okay, I guess those Jedi techs have really got some...
some tutorials.
Some cool, tutorials in there, Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, actually. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're kind of neck and neck for me.
Yeah, I mean, the Palpatine, of course, you want to know because, all right, you got launched into a whole reactor shaft. How did you survive that?
Well, and it's not only that, but unlike the Dark Ray thing is kind of a curiosity thing, but how they actually put the Palpatine stuff in context is really going to affect how good this movie is.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say that the Palpatine one's more important.
Definitely.
Whereas the Rey one, I would categorize as the curiosity factor is really you put that little nugget out there. It's like, oh yeah, you got to explain that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I mean, some honorable mentions, of course, would go to Luke's role in the movie, the Sith Troopers' role in the movie.
I want to see the Knights of Ren.
Knights of Ren's role in the movie. I would say those three, especially Knights of Ren and Sith Troopers, those kind of go hand in hand.
Because there was that same one that had the TV spot that had the Dark Ray.
Mm-hmm.
They actually showed Kylo marching with the Knights of Ren in there too.
Oh, nice!
It's that's all. It was basically at that place where he battles Rey, what we believe to be Cloud City, and they're kind of marching behind him. He's got the cracked helmet and everything. I was like, all right.
Well, and that's it. I mean, really, if you want like the whole widespread answer, the whole thing.
Oh, of course. I mean,
because if you think about it, all we've gotten in these trailers is really pretty images. We don't have any story context, which means we need everything in context.
True.
But if I had to pick the top two, they would definitely be Palpatine's role in Dark Ray, followed by Knights of Ren, Sith Troopers, and the third thing I said.
Luke.
See, that's how bad I want to know. I forgot. So hopefully, that answers your question. All right. Well, I think that's about it for our show this week, huh?
Yes, sir.
3 days.
3 days, man. 3 days. I hope you all get a chance to go out and enjoy the Rise of Skywalker. Be safe. It's the holiday season, so we wanted to wish you a happy holiday. And
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, man. It's going to be fun. I know everybody's going to be out celebrating, so take your family. I know people are going to see it over the holiday break. Kids are like all excited to see the Rise of Skywalker, so it should be a fun ride. And
absolutely. So I
can't wait to see you guys.
It's going to be a fun ride. Going to see the Rise of Skywalker. So don't forget to tune in next week after you guys see Rise of Skywalker for like the 6th time or something. Make sure that you listen to our podcast or watch it here on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and then of course click the notification bell so you find out whenever we release new videos, because we're going to start releasing a lot of new videos really soon. But first up, next week, we're going to give you a spoiler-free version of The Rise of Skywalker. So we'll see you then. I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.